Good evening. I would like to call this public hearing of the Southbridge Public Schools FY 2026 budget to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we move on to agenda item number 3, the presentation, just a brief review. During this public hearing, the superintendent receiver will present the budget, and after which the public will be allowed to make comments in regards to the budget. The public comment period is not for public debate, nor is it to ask and answer a Q&A session. Any questions from public officials should be referred through their respective subcommittees and members of the public. There will be a slide at the end with information to reach out to the school district if you have any questions after this presentation. So we will move on to agenda item number 3, the presentation on the FY26 budget by Dr. Villar in Southbridge Public Schools.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk about fiscal year 26. Can't believe we're talking about fiscal year 26. So tonight the plan is to go over some very key points that are drivers for our budget plan this year. So we're looking at student enrollment data, staffing data and information, the instructional programming impact, a review of Chapter 70 in the Student Opportunity Act, and of course talking about our appropriation request and the budget breakdown. So up until about 2022, the Southbridge Public Schools were seeing a decline in enrollment. Since that date, we seem to have stabilized around the 1,800 to 1,850 student count. As of today, I checked, we're at 1,830. So it seems to have stabilized, and of course, that's an important part of projecting as we move forward. Looking at our staffing data. The budget that we're proposing this year, which is at net school spending levels, which means the minimum level required by law for the town of Southbridge to expend on public school spending. That's the target budget that we've put together today. We're asking for that minimum amount. And with that, we're able to add a kindergarten teacher to ERS, a grade 1 teacher to ERS, 4 educational assistants, and a special education teacher, all to our pre-K1 early childhood school. You'll see on the right-hand side of this slide, that school's enrollment is at 409. Historically, going back even to 2018, 2019, is about 360. So we have seen an increase in students enrolling in our early childhood school. Some of that may have to do with the fact that 4-year-olds can enroll in the school if they're 4 in the fall. Regardless, I think the school has made a tremendous turnaround, and it's a very enthusiastic and positive place, so that could also be part of the reason why we see more kids choosing to go to ERS. This budget also supports the addition of a foreign language teacher at the high school. That will support our dual language students who are now reaching grade 9, so they have moved from kindergarten all the way to grade 9. We're pretty excited about that addition at the high school. Finally, the high school is going to have an additional special education teacher to support special education programming at the high school. West Street School slotted for Dean of Students position. So overall, meeting the net school spending, the lowest levels allowed by law to be spent in Southbridge, because of budgeting and decisions made in the past, we're able to add positions at a time when surrounding districts are cutting positions. I think that's a really important thing for us to note. When people talk about where our staff are, 90% of our staff work in schools all day long, and then the other 10% spend a lot of time in schools. For instance, I'm in schools just about every day. Every week I'm in every school. It's an expectation that's set, that we're here to support schools and the learning that happens in schools. Our schools, over many budget cycles, I've shared a very similar slide. We are staffed so that our teachers can teach and that our schools are positive and safe environments. And I would urge that this staffing level has made a tremendous difference in the climate of our schools. And I know each of you have visited schools this year, which is a phenomenal accomplishment. In my time here, it's the first time every member of the school committee has been out and seen schools. So kudos to the school committee for that. And many of you have seen many, many schools. And that's awesome. But those schools are calm and orderly and positive places because of all these staff members that are supporting learning in those schools. They serve critical roles. Some of them are quote-unquote administrators, you know, the traditional principal, assistant principal, dean of students. But a lot of them, the majority of them, are social workers, are therapists, are mental health professionals, helping kids get through the rough spots during the days at school. It's really important. You can see here the investment that the district has made over time in adjustment counselors, in programming like Bright, which is a program that helps students who are returning from hospitalization due to mental health issues, coming back into school, help supporting them. Guidance counselors, adjustment counselors. We have programming where we have social emotional curriculum that's offered to all of our elementary school students. We offer an intervention called check-in, check-out across elementary schools. We have small group and individual counseling. We work with Cartwheel, which is an external organization that allows students and families to receive counseling remotely and help them even with psychiatric medical services. We continue to work with the School Empowerment Network, who provides restorative services and training for our staff and our climate staff. We are now an award-winning, two-time award-winning positive behavior interventions district for our implementation, gold standard implementation, and we've been selected twice by the University of Connecticut to be a national demonstration site because of that excellence that our staff has continuously demonstrated. Our high school was selected and the recipient of a grant in collaboration with Clark University last year. You might recall that grant is projected over 5 years to be worth $2 million, and it's to support mental health instruction and support for high school students, and that is now in its first full year of implementation. I think some of you were able to go and actually see the MAX curriculum at play in classrooms, which is a key component of that program. This slide to me is just phenomenal. In 2018, when I arrived, I was having conversations with town councilors who were pelted with snowballs leaving our middle school. Our school was not a safe and conducive place for learning. And I heard about it all the time. And people like to talk about it. Our middle school now is an incredible school, and you'll see some of the data that it produces, and I know you've visited it, and you've seen what's happening. And their principal's here today, and we'll hear from her talking about Jill Lombardi, who happens to be a teacher who started her career in Southbridge. And this year, we'll hear tonight at the board meeting, she's going to be recognized. She's a national award winner, the Milken Award, which is the most prestigious award a teacher can get. She was awarded that here in Southbridge at Southbridge Middle School, and I was so proud to see all the children in that school cheering for their teacher. They love her. She is great, and she loves Southbridge. And she grew up, cut her teeth as a teacher in Southbridge. So, massive congratulations to Jill, but also to that middle school, because of great leadership and great teachers, they have turned around 180 degrees, and it is now a top middle school. Staff retention data, another point we've heard a lot about for a long time. Been hearing about this every year. The truth of the matter is that it's been very hard to retain staff, and there's all kinds of reasons for that. But when you dive into the data, it's pretty interesting that in 2018 it was 59.8% retention, and the latest data is 69.2%. So that's progress. We have a long way to go, but we need more Jill Lombardis, right? Because those news stories will make people think, maybe I will go work there. And as you've seen the climate, it is a good place to be a teacher. Our staff diversity, our investment from this budget and previous budgets, we continue to increase the diversity of our staff. We have almost tripled the number of Hispanic employees in Southbridge since 2018, and I'm proud of that. Our teachers have to know and understand our students, and 66% of our students are Hispanic. So it's pretty important. We're at least 3 times, if not 4 times higher than the state average for Hispanic employees. So Southbridge has another point to be very proud of its progress. Climate scores. So Southbridge has been tracking its climate scores since 2018, perhaps even the year prior. And what's very interesting about these data, the box on this chart is the years of the pandemic, because it does make data a little squirrely when you're surveying kids remotely rather than being in class. So I wanted to be transparent that that's what those years were. But what the real story here is, if we look at our student climate scores, they're among the highest they've been. They're on the upward trend. And our staff climate scores are absolutely the highest they've ever been. So that speaks loudly to that climate that you've all experienced. It's a place where teachers can teach and students get the support that they need so that they can learn. So it's a pretty impressive accomplishment. I know that one of our union presidents are here. Our staff deserve a round of applause for the work that they've been doing. We have some of the best teachers in the state working here in Southbridge. They get PD every week, and these data just show the impact that they make. This is for Charlton Street School, and yes, I cherry-picked a couple schools, but in the back of your package you have all the schools, so I'm not hiding it. I just wanted to show you some of the positives here that's pretty amazing, because Charlton Street is a school that has turned around 180 degrees. It had hit a peak, and then we had leadership change, and it went for several years of not doing well. This year, Abdi Ladande, the one-year principal for us, many years prior here as a principal, has turned his school around with the help of his staff. He has a whole group of teachers who are working really hard over there, and we're seeing massive changes in the data. This year's reports all show improvement among staff, family, and students. That's why we track it. It's really important. Southbridge High School is actually even a bit more amazing. Always a source of controversy. I've given everyone a handout because in your packet I think it goes to Charlton Street in a larger, so there's an additional sheet of paper that I gave to folks with their handout that shows the high school data. I realized this afternoon that it wasn't included in the presentation. This year's scores on the Georgia Climate Survey, as you can see, are among the highest ever for personnel, staff, since we've been surveying that school. We also get data from SEN that shows massive staff satisfaction. Again, that slide of all the personnel working to support teachers has a lot to do with this. But the PD and the teachers implementing and working hard at implementing what they've learned in uniform, working together, has made this difference. I know some of you recently toured the high school with me. No cell phones. I got to tell you, call anyone who runs a high school or a middle school across the state and ask to go see. You're going to see hundreds, thousands of cell phones. Staff in Southbridge are on top of that. They're working in unison together, so that's not a distraction. They deserve an attaboy for that. It's amazing. And that's all teachers working together. It's the only way that happens. In our instructional program, the budget does support achievement. I hear we haven't had any achievement. That is just absolutely not true. You can see in last year's MCAS results, improvements in science, in English, mathematics, a 12% increase in mathematics. Improvements, again, 8th grade English, science, 10th grade science. When we look at growth scores, so where students start and where do you bring them to? Southbridge, grades 3 through 8, is above the state average for growth. We outperform the state in student growth. It's a really important thing to kind of let soak in for a second. Then when we look at 15 comparison districts, our performance, and I'll get into it, is among the best. And these are districts demographically are somewhat similar, although there's really a small handful in the entire state that are actually demographically aligned to where we're at. Again, in mathematics, same thing, above state averages for growth. So yes, we do have a large number of students who come in struggling, but their growth is above average. That means our teachers are adding more than a typical growth. And they deserve, again, thanks and appreciation for the hard work that they're doing. Our middle school really is leading the pack. So not only are they above state average for growth in English language arts, they're large. 6% is a big deal when we're looking at state growth scores. They're also grade 6, number 4 out of 15 comparison districts. Grade 7, number 2 out of 15 comparison districts for growth. Grade 8, number 2. Math, number 1, grade 6 out of 15 comparison districts. Grade 7, number 4. Grade 8, number 2. All outperforming the state average in growth. You'll see grade 6, 60 score on student growth is quite significant. We've had a year not too long ago where I shared we had an 8th grade class that hit 80% student growth. That was met with crickets. It should be congratulations, great job middle school, you teachers rock, because they do. We look at the state's report card. In Southbridge Middle School this year's report card, 63% progress out of 100%. Substantial progress towards targets. I was a history teacher. We go back, 2018. Southbridge Middle School, focused target support, 38% towards progress. This year, 63%. 2017, before I was here, it was at slightly different scale. They're at 33% growth. English language arts, 26 in math. The red boxes show where we are this year. So 33 to 54, 26 to 57. Yeah, our middle school's improved a little bit, quite a bit. We should be proud. The town should be proud of the schools. So, this budget obviously is dependent on state funding because we're at net school spending. 77% or so of our funds are going to come from the state, and the Student Opportunity Act allows for us to invest in these programs to keep the teachers that other districts have to cut right now. And what I'm going to ask is Bill Metzger, who is Executive Director of Finance and Personnel, to come up and explain a little bit and walk through. I know many of you know this, you've heard it, but we think it's really important that everybody hears about how the budget comes together. And then we'll talk a little bit about the capital needs that we have in our schools too. So, Mr. Metzger. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Villar. Mr. Chair, and through you to the members. I'm tasked with explaining to you and to the public viewing how Massachusetts creates its funding model and how it applies specifically to the Southbridge Public Schools. So the Commonwealth uses a formula to determine the foundation budget every year for each school district. They arrive at the foundation budget by taking the number of students enrolled on October 1st of the prior year and multiplying it by what they determine to be the per pupil rate to educate a student in the community. The per pupil rate is not static. It changes community to community based on some demographics and indicators that I'll cover in a slide later. So once the foundation budget is determined for a community, the department takes a further step of determining how they're going to arrive at that number, right? So the foundation budget is met through a combination of state aid, most commonly known as Chapter 70, and local contribution. The primary driver of that is property tax, right? So in communities that I think are more, not that I think, in communities that are more economically affluent, a larger share of the foundation budget comes from that local contribution. Communities such as Southbridge that have, difficult socioeconomic status, the lion's share of aid comes from Chapter 70, from the Department of Ed, and then the gap is made up by the local contribution. So how are per pupil rates used to calculate the foundation budget? So every community gets, if you will, points awarded for base foundation rates, right? There's a monetary value assigned to kindergarten, elementary, middle, high school, and vocational students. Additional monies are applied to the per pupil rate for students that fall under one of the criteria in the column on the right. Special education, English language learner, low income. As you are all aware, a majority of the students in our community do hit on one, if not several, of the additional foundation rate indicators, which is where the Student Opportunity Act comes into play. So prior to the Student Opportunity Act being passed in 2019, increases to the per pupil rate were based on the deflator index of inflation. So in a year, if inflation rose by 1.5 the department would increase the per pupil rate by 1.5, and that was capped at 4.5%. The legislature felt that they really wanted to focus on closing equity gaps for students across the Commonwealth, and so they passed the Student Opportunity Act. This upcoming year will be year 5 of 6 years of the program, and you can see the boxes in the gray are what the increase would have been just based on inflation in a particular year, and then the figure in the blue is how much additional percentage points the rates were increased for the Southbridge Public Schools. Many of our students do fall in the highest category of need based on socioeconomic indicators. That is providing us with an additional, almost $10,000, $9,500 in per pupil funding coming from the Commonwealth as part of the SOA. So how much state aid does Southbridge receive to support the foundation budget? What is the overall number for the foundation budget this year, and what does that mean in terms of local contribution? So prior to the Student Opportunity Act, about 74% of the foundation budget came in the form of state aid. The SOA has seen an increase in that to about 77%. The department has determined that the foundation budget for the upcoming school year will be $44.3 million approximately. That represents about a $2 million increase in aid coming from the state via Chapter 70, and the minimum local required contribution is going to increase by $386,000. As Dr. Villar mentioned in his remarks, and mindful of the needs of the community, we do design the budget in mind with the net minimum school spending, the minimum required contribution for the community to come up with. And how we do that is the foundation budget is a formula that includes some items and excludes others, right? So items that are included are in the column on the left: charter tuition assessments, reimbursements, school choice tuition assessments, special ed assessments, and municipal costs in support of the school district, known as Schedule 19, which include health insurance costs, administrative fees for the municipality providing services for the district. Not included in the calculation of the foundation budget are costs associated with transportation and maintenance costs in excess of $100,000 per project. So how do we get to the projected FY26 town appropriation, right, for the Southbridge Public Schools? The formula starts in step one with the town's foundation budget, also known as net school spending, which again is calculated by the department using the formula I described earlier. Step two, we remove the eligible costs and revenues and then add back related education revenue and costs not included in the foundation budget calculation. So we take out charter tuition assessment, school choice assessment, state special ed assessment, those Schedule 19 costs, and we add back charter tuition reimbursement and transportation. Our figures around net school spending, assessments, and reimbursements do come from the governor's fiscal year 26 budget proposal. Transportation is the projected cost for fiscal year 26. We calculated a 5% increase in actuals from the FY25 budget. And our Schedule 19 costs are based on actuals from our end of the year report that we submitted earlier this school year, and with an increase of 3%, which is the municipal growth revenue factor that is given to us by the Department of Revenue. What does the money go to? Southbridge is no different from school districts and municipalities across the Commonwealth and across the country, quite frankly. The lion's share of our operating costs is in people, is in salaries, and then, coming down the line are benefits associated with employment, our out-of-district tuitions for special education students, transportation costs, utilities and maintenance, contracted services, professional development would be an example, school supplies and other expenses. Some examples of other expenses would be costs related to co-curricular activities and athletics. In addition to the creation of the budget and the general fund for fiscal year 26, we did, at the request and direction of the town manager, municipal government, submit a number of capital requests that we hope they will consider funding for the upcoming school year. The requests represent a variety of different needs, including making sure that our roofs are in good working order, that the exterior of our buildings are safe for students. We have some vehicles that both provide transportation for students and are used for maintenance and facilities uses that are quite old, and we are looking to replace and to ensure that we have functioning HVAC in our buildings throughout the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I just want, for those who are watching, the chairperson had said at the beginning of the meeting that we would have an ability for folks if they want to send an email to the district. So this is a picture of the Southbridge Public Schools homepage, and there's a big red arrow that points to contact us. If you click on that, there's a form you can fill out to send an email. And also, if you wanted to get hard or digital copies, I should say, of this presentation in our budget book, under the About tab, receivership documents, you'll see there's links to both of those documents there as well, so you can get access to them. They're up live on the site as we speak. So that concludes our presentation. I do want to once again thank the school committee. All of you have reached out, visited schools, and have shown a real interest in this budget development process, have asked a lot of questions, and I feel as if there's some traction, so that's great, and I just want to publicly thank you for that. I know our principals enjoy showing off their schools. They're proud of the work that's going on, and our teachers are proud of the work that they're doing in their classes, and again, they really deserve thanks. They deserve praise and appreciation for what they do every day for our kids. Our teachers are working their tails off, and our principals are right there with them. So thank you all very much for your attention. I know during the next board meeting, you all will have questions, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to the public comment section. Again, just as a friendly reminder, this is not a Q&A session. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments in regards to the proposed FY26 budget. If you have any questions as members of the public, go ahead and reach out through the Contact Us tab on the Southbridge Public Schools website. So I will open the podium to any member of the public who would like to make a comment.
Councilor Marchetti, 120 Marie Avenue. I do have a question, but I know you're not going to answer it tonight, but I just was wondering what was going on with the facilities master plan that you presented to the council, a couple months ago? That's all. If you want to email me, that'd be fine. Thank you. Yep.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to comment on the proposed FY26 budget? Seeing none, I will go ahead and adjourn the public hearing.